Did you know that you can let people create tasks straight in ClickUp without even giving them full access to the list? Hi there, it's Ramzi. I'll show you in this video how to use and create ClickUp Forms. ClickUp Forms is a feature that lets you collect any type of request and turns it into a task straight in ClickUp. It could be hiring request, sales request, it could be contact forms, bug, it could be feedback. So basically any type of collection of information that you need can be turned into a ClickUp task. And obviously you can do that internally within ClickUp through this form view, but I'm going to show you that you can also customize and share this ClickUp form externally on any website if you want to. Now stay till the second part of this video, because if you already know about the basics of ClickUp form, you're going to understand exactly how to speed up your workflow by creating forms that route your task to the right list and apply the right templates. This will make any request intake from any part of your team much faster. But before everything, I'm going to show you when to use and not to use ClickUp Forms. I recommend you to use ClickUp Forms for very specific cases. When it's a matter of simple data collection, ClickUp Forms is great because it lets you create tasks by collecting some names, descriptions, comments, and all kinds of simple basic information. It could be useful for ticket creation, for bug reports, for leave requests, basic feedback, and anything that's really minimalistic. And I'm going to show you how to create those types of forms. Now, if you want to create some complex forms with conditional fields, with different questions, whether it's a quiz or some sort of legal form where you need to collect 5, 10, 20 pieces of information, ClickUp Forms is not the right tool. And I'm going to show you some alternatives and potentially how you could connect those alternatives to ClickUp if you still are using this software as your productivity tool. But now when it's a matter of creating complex forms, like a customer survey where you're going to ask, how did you discover us, rate us, how would you recommend, what could we improve, some NPS survey, could also be some quiz, some legal form where you have 5, 10, 20 questions to ask. For these types of forms, I recommend to use specific software that's dedicated to collecting complex forms because it's data oriented, because it's going to let you create conditional information. You can do that in ClickUp. I'm going to show you how, but it's much more basic. There's plenty of those tools on the market. There's Typeform here, but you can use Paperform. I found Jotform as well, and Jotform directly integrates with ClickUp, so it's kind of great. There's also Typeform. Typeform is pretty powerful as well. I've used it in the past. Fillout is also pretty good. I personally happen to be using Tally. Tally is a great tool. It's made in Belgium, I think, and they're really a Notion-like interface if you know a little bit about Notion. But basically it's very minimal, it's very quick to create a form, and it really helps me with my workflow. From there, I connect Tally using a software called make.com. I have these very complex forms that are on Tally. Whenever someone fills out a form, connect it to ClickUp and create a new task with all that form information in ClickUp. And this time, instead of being a custom field, which will clutter our workspace as we have 10, 20, 30 questions, it's going to be straight in the description. Because for most cases, you don't really need to have those informations in custom fields. You just need to have them collected somewhere. So Tally is great for that, and you can connect it with Make. You could also use Zapier. Zapier is a much simpler way to create automations than Make.com. And as you can see, it offers to integrate Tally with ClickUp to automate your work. Now, we're not going to talk about how to connect a complex form tool with ClickUp. I might actually do a video about that in the future. If you're interested about automating your complex forms with ClickUp, I can help you with that. You can book a discovery call. The link is in the description, and we can go through the form, the workflow that you need, the automations that you need, and integrate those powerful software forms with ClickUp. With that said, we're going to talk about a much simpler way to create and collect requests in ClickUp, which is the form view. We're going to get to ClickUp right here, and I am going to create a new form view for, say, my people team. Say I want to hire some candidates. I have my hiring candidates list right here, and I have several candidates in there. That's amazing. And if I want to collect some new applications, I could do it straight in ClickUp as I said, as long as you have very basic, very few questions. If you start to have 10, 20 questions in some more of a quiz, then ClickUp is not the right tool for you. But in this example, we're going to go with something very simple. And we are going to create a new view and pick the form view. Now, I could create the form view in a folder or in a space, but if you happen to be doing that, ClickUp is going to ask you where you want the answers to go. So where you want the task to be created. So if I were to go into the people space and click form and add a new form from scratch, it's going to tell me where do you want the answers to go. And I don't want that. And that's why I explicitly create form views only in lists. That way I know exactly where the replies will go. Now that's a good practice that I recommend. If you want to create form views, create them in the right lists. So we're going to get back to the candidates list and create a new view that's going to be a form view. Click here and I can rename it to applications and create a new form. By default, ClickUp offers me different types of forms. I can create a feedback form, a project intake form, some order form. I can show you really quickly how this looks. So we're going to create an existing project intake form. I'm not going to create the job application form because we want to do that together. I'm going to show you step-by-step how to. A default ClickUp form template would look like this. So you have the project name, additional details, what's the priority, and you can already see that these questions are different from wherever it goes. So this project name will actually go into the task name of the ClickUp task will be created. Behind every response, it's a task in ClickUp. The piece of data is a task. No matter what type of form you create, it will still be a task. So I'm gonna remove that one and create my application form. We're going to create a simple form right now, and later we're going to create a much more advanced one that lets you automate your intakes and reroute your replies to the right list. I'm going to show you how powerful that can be and how that can trigger your templates, etc. Let's start with this simple form. I want my candidates to answer to this application form, so I'm going to call it application. I can change the logo if I want to, so I'm going to upload an image. I've uploaded this logo and I click save. And I really want to make this form my brand. We can finish up our customization before we start the form if you want to. So I'm going to make my form dark. Now we'll talk about the rest of the customization later before we publish our form. Now that I've created my title, my logo, I could actually tell ClickUp AI to create a short paragraph as the header of an application form. And I'll click enter and let's see what it does. Please complete the following application. That's amazing. I hit reply and we have please complete the following application on form with accurate and up-to-date info. Perfect. I can make that yellow if I want to, or whatever color I want, format it, put it in bold. I don't want the person to miss it, so that's amazing. Now I'm going to add a task name, and that task name will be the actual candidate name, because we've seen in my list right here that task names are candidates. So basically we want to match that pattern. I'll get back to editing and say candidate name, and then I'm gonna pick a description and say, please tell us a little bit more about you. And then I can add the email address of that candidate and say your email, because I have a custom field, that's the email field. And I can also add the department custom field and say the department you want to work for. That's perfect. If I want to collect some more information and I don't see it in the custom fields right here, for example, I want to see what's their salary expectations. In this case, I can either create a new field or bring on a new one. And as a best practice in ClickUp, in any case, I recommend you to always go look in Add Field from Workspace and see if you can actually bring an existing money field that we could reuse. Here we have a value field. That's amazing because it's a money field, and instead of creating a new money field, we're going to use that one and drop it here and say, what are your salary expectations? All right, so I have my form ready. Candidate, tell us a little bit more about you, your email, the department you want to work, what are your salary expectations, everything. But now, what if the design department tells us, In the design team, we always want to see the portfolio of the candidate. Very often, designers have portfolios on websites like Behance, Dribble, etc., and they can share what they worked on during the application, and we want to see that mandatorily if they're applying for the design team. In this case, I'm going to create a logic, and see here in this drop-down type of field, I have a logic option, and this logic will say if response is, and the team is, let's say, design, then request for a link for that portfolio. And because I have a link type of field, I'm going to first bring it up. So same as the value type of field, I'm going to go into add field from workspace and bring my link type of field, this one, website, add field. And then for this field, I'm going to add it back here and say your portfolio link, and I'll make it required. And I can actually make the salary expectations optional because some people might be intimidated about talking about that at that point of the applications. Maybe that makes more sense. And here we have enter URL. And now I can wrap up customizing my form for when I share it online. So I can go to the right panel. Whenever the new application comes in, I want to be the one handling it. So I'll assign the task automatically to me. And then I could automatically apply a template, for example. So I can apply one of those templates. I'll apply a default ClickUp template, although I recommend never doing that, but they have a hiring checklist that I could use. So I'll use that template, even if it's not super relevant, but we'll just add it right here. And I will add a redirect URL. I will say each time some application comes in, it redirects to my website. That way people can know a little bit more about what we do, what our company is about, and it will redirect them to the main website. Then I can remove the ClickUp branding. I think that's a feature you can only do on the business plan and above. That way we won't have the little ClickUp logo here in the bottom, and the user will not really know unless they read the URL that it's actually a ClickUp form. What I like to do is also turn on the custom field answers to the description. That way all the responses will appear up in the description of the task, and I can just read through the description instead of having to go through each of the custom fields to understand what the application is about. I'm going to add reCAPTCHA as well to my form. You've probably had to fill reCAPTCHA a few times. This is basically a feature that blocks robots from hitting your website and sending 10,000 applications at once, which would completely blow up your ClickUp workspace. So if you're quite public, I recommend turning on reCAPTCHA. And then if I go into preview, I can see exactly how this form will look like on my website. So we have our application form. Please complete the following application, candidate. Please tell us a little bit more about you, email, department, etc. This is amazing. And all I can do is either copy a link here on top or embed code and copy the code and send that to your developer if you want them to put this form on your website. You can also pick where you want the link to expire. So if this is a temporary form, you could pick 90 days or a custom date. You could say, I want this application form to end on April 30th, and then click copy a link. And now I'll go to a new tab. And whenever I open this link on the internet, this application form is created. Now I could put myself in the shoes of a candidate. I'm going to apply for my own company, for example. I'm going to say, I am very motivated. And then I'm going to enter my email, for example. Then I'm going to pick my department. So I could say I'm applying for finance, but I could also say I'm applying for design. And as you can see, the conditional form has applied because I've selected design. It's requesting me for my portfolio link. And here I could just paste my portfolio from Behance or whatever. And here is my salary expectations. It's $100 million. Not sure I'm going to get that job with that salary expectations, but we never know. I'm just going to hit I'm not a robot and then click submit. And not only this task will be created in ClickUp, it should also redirect me to the website that I've picked in the settings. It's actually my company website. And if I get back to ClickUp and go into the pipeline or the list view, a new candidate should have appeared, and it's right here. So we have the candidate name, the email, and all the information we need. Now we have created our first simple form in ClickUp. We've shared it externally, and we can intake as many applications as we want. But what if you want to create an internal form that lets you intake answers and also reroute them to the right list based on what was answered and apply the right templates? That will help you drastically speed up your workflow as you take different replies from different parts of your team, because you won't even have to qualify and prepare the tasks yourself. For this more advanced case, we're going to use our marketing team, for example. And as you can see, we have blog articles and newsletters types of content that we create for our clients. The newsletters actually have a template that we could apply to them, and blog articles also do too. And we want that whenever someone requests a new blog article or newsletter, it goes to the right list and also the right templates applied. So we can call out one of those templates just to show an example. If we go into blog, I'll just open up and pick the blog post template and click use template. And there we go. We have all the steps right here. Perfect. And we want this to apply as soon as the task is a blog type of task. So we're going to create an internal form this time. And to do so, we could create it right here. And based on the custom field, decide to redirect it either in the blog articles list or in the newsletter list. But I don't recommend you to do so because you don't necessarily want to share those lists with members of your team. And you also want to be clear about where the new requests come from and decide to tweak those automations later, or add new types of fields, or simply stop that automation and just take in all your requests in a list and route them yourself later manually. So we're going to create a new dedicated list for our form and call it content requests, and click create. And here in our new content request list, we're going to create a new view that's a form type of view, and we're going to rename it to content requests. Now that is done, we can just start from scratch. And we're going to create a very simple form this time because I've shown you most of the form features itself. Now we're going to talk more about automating your form. I'm going to add the task name, description, attachment, and maybe the publishing date. That could actually be interesting. And we're going to add another drop-down field for the type of request that we want, whether it's a blog article or newsletter. So I actually have a custom field that serves that purpose. It's actually called content, and I'm going to add that field. It also has another value, I think, which is social media. And we could potentially bring in that social media list right here and say we also want to automate that. So let's actually use this case and reroute the form to either blog articles, newsletter, or social media based on what my internal client, my team member, has requested. Same principle, I'm going to rename my fields so that they're a little bit more user-friendly. So I'm going to pick content name, I'm going to say content description, and then attachments, publishing date, and maybe content type. That way it's a little bit more explicit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a few automations so that each time we fill the content type, it goes to the right list and applies the right template. So I'm going to show you the example for one of them, and then you can apply the same principle for the others. I'm going to go into automations, then say on task or subtask created, and custom field content is equal to, say, blog, for example. We want to reroute to the list. So we want to move the task to the list, blog, articles, perfect. And then we also want to apply a template. So we have it for our blog articles. We can just pick the blog post template and click use template. And I can rename this automation and say task created, move to blog list. So as soon as the task is created and it's a blog type of content, then move it to the list blog articles and apply the blog post template. And we can customize it even more and automate the due date, for example, change the due date to 15 days after trigger date, because the blog post usually is taken care of within a fortnight. I'll click create, and I can actually duplicate this automation and just tweak it for my newsletter and my social media type of content. So I'm going to go into duplicate in the current location and say when content is newsletter, then move to list newsletter And then we could apply a newsletter template if we want to. In this case, we don't have any, so I'll just delete this one and I'll change due date to 15 days after. I can just rename this automation newsletter task created, move to newsletter list. Created my 3 automations. When a blog task is created, we move it to the blog list. When a newsletter task is created, we move it to the newsletter list. Social media task created, we move it to the social media list. And on top of that, we can also apply a template if we want to. This is amazing, and let's give it a try. We have our form right here. And if I take that link of the view and not the one right here on the right, so the link view, and click copy link to view and open that in the new tab, what will happen is that we will have that internal form link, not the one shared on the internet. And when we go into the preview mode, and if your user actually has read-only access to that list, they'll only see the preview mode anyway, they can make their request and we'll see exactly who created the request. Whereas if it came from the public link, we wouldn't know who's the creator. We're going to say I want an article on 10 best places in Greenland. I have found this great inspo, 10 places in Greenland, and then I can add some attachments. So say I want these as illustrations, and then I can also add a publishing date. So say I want this to be published on the blog on the 11th of January, and it's a blog type of content. I'll click submit. And if we go to the list view this time, the task is not here. And that's because our automation worked. It moved it to the right blog articles list. And here in the bottom, we have our article, 10 best places in Greenland. And if we open it up, we have the description that the user submitted, but we also have the template, the outline, write the initial draft, proofread for errors. I can potentially add SOPs, automate the assignees, automate the due dates, the estimates, and basically get our whole workflow going just from a form intake. And that is the power of ClickUp Forms, because if your request is well labeled, well qualified, where you have all your data, your default fields, your custom fields, you have all the information you need for you to intake your request successfully and efficiently, everything can go so much faster with the right automations and the right templates applied. Now, I hope it helped you out get clear on what ClickUp Form does, its power, and how you can automate it. If you want to grasp ClickUp to its full potential and really understand step-by-step how it works, you can access my course, ClickUp Master. The link is right in the description. And if you have a more specific problem that's about ClickUp Forms or ClickUp in general, you can book a discovery call with me and we'll go through your specific issues and solve them one by one. Now, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.